How could 2020 possibly get worse? The China/India border situation going from a standoff to a full-on shooting war. And then Pakistan gets involved to aid China. Man, it's gonna be a three-way nuke war. Oh jolly. Wait, why is it so cold out there? Well, in the case of my country Chile, we had massive protests since October. Government handled it pretty bad and our economy crippled. Now with the pandemic, again the government mishandled it, and we are having a pretty nasty second wave of infections. Only thing that would make things worse would be one of our recurrent earthquakes. Chile is known for having devastating earthquakes every 10 to 15 years. Last big one near the capital was around 10 years ago. If government mishandles it again, our economy may hurt in a irreparable way. Edit. Kagome embarks CSM edit 2. Perdnan Tofa. No Fumi Intensin Sayita. Hey. Another Chilean here. And yeah, that's the worst I can imagine here. It's hurricane season. And wildfire season. Some sort of large-scale electrical failure would be the icing on the cake. Oh please not that. Quarantine plus no internet would suck so much. A proxy war between any two nations' nuclear powers that turns nuclear. More specifically, since everybody's asking, China vs India, like what's going on right now, or the US vs Iran or Saudi Arabia vs Iran. And finally, American Civil War 2. I nominate Vatican City and Monaco for the war. We find evidence of alien life, but it's like the emulating one from The Thing. We find alien life, more like alien life finds us. A world war, World War 5. A war so intense it skips over 3 and 4. YouTube rewind. Can't wait to see 2020 it rewind, to be honest. If we were stuck in a 2020 time loop, Australia is told to prepare now for the coming bushfire season. Anybody remembers post from 3rd of January? It was something like, first day of new year WW3 starts, second Australia is on fire, third day Pope hits woman, what will happen fourth day? And people were joking what terrible chiz will happen, and now it's like worst year since 1939. Oh duck, a guy on there said COVID, back when it had just started. 2020, after seeing this post, write that down. Write that down. No kidding. Why are we giving 2020 ideas? Not sure, but the first 5 months feels like 5 years. Was talking to my wife about Hong Kong protests and Australia wildfires, and it seems like it was a couple of years ago. I'm watching the US to see how the elections are going. That could really give 2020 the cherry on top. We're on like the 6th era of 2020 by now. Remember Trump's impeachment trial way back in the first era of 2020? A double pandemic. Ebola's back. You just had to ask, didn't you? You will go down in history as the person who jinxed humanity to her annihilation. There will be no recorded history to go down in after an annihilation. Calling it now, the second half of 2020 is gonna be the best comeback in history, starting with a Rocky IV montage. Let's see, how could this happen? 1. Australian fires burn away almost all plants except for a small bush that has randomly mutated to resist wildfire. The bush spreads rapidly to cover the whole continent and bushfires are no longer a thing. 2. Turns out Kobe Crash was a ruse so he could do an undercover TV show. Turns out to be the best show ever made. 3. With so much research going into coronavirus, scientists accidentally stumble across a method to cure all types of cancer. As a bonus, it's a non-American company, so it's provided for no profit. 4. Kim turns out to have nearly died, but makes full recovery. The near-death experience makes him fundamentally change his outlook on the world, and he makes North Korea an open country that is friendly with the rest of the world. A massive meteorite hitting the Earth at a time of heightened tensions between India and China, and is mistaken for a nuclear attack, causing a full-on exchange of nukes between the two. Confirmation that the UG-99 stem rust has spread beyond East Africa/the Middle East to multiple points in Europe, East Asia, and the Americas, permanently threatening the global supply of wheat. Global food shortage is one of those things I have heard about and just kind of pushed to the side in my mind. because it's too scary to think about. Exactly like I used to do with pandemics. COVID-20. If pandemics are a once in 100 year thing, there's 100th chance another one starts this year. I don't like those odds. Yellowstone. At least for the USA, for my country, Jacob Zuma somehow makes it back. Yellowstone caldera blowing would mess up more than the US. Large portion of the world would be ducked. I live in LA, and today I was thinking the universe could truly duck us by finally having the big one strike this summer. But I guess that's just regional, and not more awful cheers for the entire world. Sandigan here. IDK if it's just me, but I've been feeling a lot more earthquakes recently than before. Diarrhea. Widespread, infectious and without warning. All the toilet paper hoarders, look who's laughing now. 3 ancient men found frozen in a pillar in a cavern, with strange masks made of stone scattered around the place. A man-shaped statue falls to earth. Today is the beginning of hurricane season. A hurricane season already forecast to be among the most active ever, and which nearly broke the May record for storm formation. Tide plus one storm almost developed plus another likely to in the next day or two. Portals to Oblivion. Yahweh 2 Bethesda series in 2020. Several X-class solar flares that completely destroy global telecommunications, household electronics, and power grids all over the world, thereby knocking humanity back to the Stone Age. / insert whatever time period you think would best suit the scenario, i.e. 1950s, 1900s, 1800s etc. Wait. Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing to have happen. Edit. Several people seem to be focusing on the Stone Age part of the above statement. If it makes all of you feel better about this hypothetical scenario, I have struck out the Stone Age part and left it up to the end user to decide how this scenario plays out. It would be closer to Mad Maximum, wouldn't it? Gas power would still work. A catastrophic earthquake on the west coast of the US, followed by a Category 5 hurricane that goes up the entire east coast. As far as I know, the earth is still rotating on its axis, so that could, stop. Edit. Did all you autists telling me the earth can't stop rotating also tell the one guy there's no such thing as space bees, or the other dude that we won't all simultaneously chiz ourselves? There was an XKCD what if scenario for this. The long and short of it was a brief period of high winds and tsunamis because of the deceleration, but if the moon was still orbiting, it would get the earth to start spinning again. Since people are questioning it, here it is. The government taking away more internet privacy. They actually renewed the Patriot Act, meaning they can look through your browser and search history without a warrant. So yes, it got worse. America spirals completely out of control. Like total anarchy. Look outside. Edit. A lot of people are taking me seriously, so I feel the need to specify that I'm just joking around. Trump re-elected in November. Two-party systems never fail to disappoint. Random chimp event. It wasn't chimps, but we did have this last week. Sky Mirror Archive. The magnetic poles are going to shift, so the compound in my car's rear view mirror will be inaccurate. Jumps out window. It's an election year. It could get a lot worse. Genuinely surprised I had to scroll this far. America just straight up becomes a fascist nation without even trying to hide it. Second wave of coronavirus turns out much worse than the first wave. Economic collapse because of a second wave. Yellowstone erupts. World War III erupts. Trump is re-elected and wastes no time in using his second term to get all the things he didn't do in his first. Bolsonaro goes full dictator. The Crew Dragon burns up on re-entry. The locusts get way worse, causing widespread starvation. China escalates further with Hong Kong, Taiwan, whoever they're ducking over now. Someone steps in to stop China escalating, and then we have a full-on war brewing. One of the feared CO2 feedback loop tipping points springs into action and we start spiraling faster to climate chaos. The internet goes down. So far things haven't been that bad for many of us because we still have the most advanced entertainment and communication systems humanity has ever known available at our fingertips 24/7. The economy would literally stop. Coronavirus vaccine goes nationwide and 2 weeks later 99.9% of recipients become zombies. I like this one. I will buy an axe in advance. American Civil War 2.0. Who should we elect to be our Abe Lincoln? Israel declare war on Palestine. China does anything. The San Andreas fault line goes off. Yellowstone has a full-scale eruption. Aliens. Zombies. A huge solar flare. America has a civil war. Lord Voldemort returns. It rains spiders in places other than Brazil. A Sharknado. Asteroid impact. Nuclear war. Rick Sanchez shows up. Lol, China does anything. Space Bees edit. Space wasps would be worse edit too. The hornets are the real problem. Time altering space bees who can jump back in time. Be kind, rewind. Someone makes time travel and changes the timeline. How do you think we got here? Damn butterfly effect. Saying it can't get worse. The phrase is taboo. One on guy our construction crew would always say, what could possibly go wrong? Just before we were doing something dicey, like moving something heavy. Every time. George, just shut up. Everyone dies. Yeah, I think that would do it. The rest, we don't care, I guess. For me and some others, yes, but there has been worse years in all of our history as others have stated, and I'm not going to repeat what they said. I'm looking at this from a subjective standpoint as to prove why 2020 is a chiz year. Subjectively, for me this year literally kicked the chiz further down the drain for me. Lost my job twice, or I can't visit my family members who are on their deathbed, and barely scraping by. You hear about COVID-19 24/7 and just want to stop hearing about it. You are sick of the hysteria and the hopelessness. There always seems to be something new threatening the world every month, like fires, COVID, murder hornets, and now hurricane season. Not a good mix with COVID. There is nothing to do for enjoyment. Before you can say, well, there's things you can do at your house, you miserable prick. Let me tell you, there is only so much you can do before you get bored at the thought of anything, and everyone just wants this dumb lockdown to end already and doesn't care anymore. Everyone I know is burnt out with this year and wants it to burn in hell like it deserves, and probably where it came from. There is nothing to look forward to as it's shut down. People have given up, more like forced to, activities that they enjoy just because of COVID. People lost their jobs, graduations, and lives of people that they love. I'd say 2020 is a top contender for the worst year ever, but doesn't beat the 1929 stock market crash, the 1930s, WWI and WW2, but nonetheless a top contender for destroying lives and sucking enjoyment out of everyone. Dear 2020, go back to where you came from and let's just skip to 2021 already. Duck you 2020, and I hope you rot in hell. 2020, the year of hopelessness and lower expectations. That's all, folks. I have to disagree, and I lost a grandparent to COVID-19 last month in New York. With no job, I finally got to do what I always wanted to do for the past 5 years. Stabilize my home, spend time with my family, and learn to be the actual king using Junjun archetype here that I always wanted. I've come to learn how to install electrical fixtures, how to properly paint a room, how to bond with my family, learned my imbalances in relationships, and how it is exacerbated by being in quarantine. Got myself healthier with better nutrition. I thought this was going to be impossible, since diet is so difficult to maintain. Went back to working out since having a family, and started to write my own mythological story. I've lost my job and thought my purpose was gone, and I let down my family, but this gave me time to bring myself back to center and find out that the American grind is not what humans are meant to do. I just hope when this clears up, I can find something to do that will be an eat to me and not a detriment to my mental and physical health like my last jobs and careers were. Delete this before they see it. We should stop giving 2020 ideas to destroy us. The immortal Queen of England dies. Nap, she'll just hit the next stage of her evolution. Knocks hard as duck on wood. Two people knocking on wood cancels it out, so better knock again. You could step on some Lego. You're walking through a war-torn city. A cold mist occasionally shooting up your spine as you carry a bag full of scavenged food across the town. The world hadn't been the same since World War III, the third wave of the pandemic, the re-election. As you get back to your safe house and begin undressing and unloading what you gathered, you stepped on a Lego. Pain shoots up your leg as you collapse to the floor holding your foot. Your vision starts to go black as it begins to become unbearable. It seems like your hard work in the end didn't really pay off. In the end, it wasn't any of the apocalyptic things that done in The Survivor of the Wasteland. Instead, that it was something far less deadlier, a Lego. Microsoft decides to flex and lock all pirated content on our SaaS, always on, spy telemetry boxes, which is why all my saved files are stored on a Linux box. Straight up locking out unauthorized content is very much on the agenda. Craig. China going to war. Nukes. Just wait. The accelerated trials for COVID-19 vaccine gone wrong. Instead of preventing infections, the vaccine helped the current strain evolved into something much more deadlier. Moved to Madagascar or Greenland. School in the summer. No one deserves that. Alien invasion. I read this as Alan Iverson. The current non-lethal protests could turn into the police being authorized to use lethal force. Trump loses a general election, but refuses to leave office. That'd be the December boss battle to top off this year. I can imagine Biden and Trump attempting to fight in the Oval Office and both just losing balance and incapacitating themselves. I'm genuinely fearful these protests are going to bring about a second even deadlier wave. Think Nick Butt in almost every major metro area. That and the economic and social fallout, impending hurricane season, the election. It could for sure get worse, and that's not taking into account all the surprises this year yet has. On the plus side though, maybe we will find some vaccine and maybe these protests will get the uppity ups to take seriously the needs of the 1%. We find out that this just the demo version. Yellowstone. Second wave of a deadlier and more infectious COVID-19 and people don't believe it because they are warped conspiracists, so they do not social distance etc. More stay at home, more of the government ducking things up, and more damage to the economy. Deleted. New theaters of war. Possible candidates currently include China vs. Taiwan. Taiwan is considered a major non-NATO ally, so that conflict would have a high likelihood of maximum evolution. Not to mention people are just tired of China's chiss. Nickelback could release a new album. Stephanie Meyer is already releasing something on August. 10 years ago I was just worried my generation would be known as the one that patronized Twilight. Ooh, young, naive, idealistic skytrader. Stay in 2010. Don't jinx it. It's too late. Ice cream prohibition. A nearby gamma ray burst hits us. It's pretty much game over. A quick end is too merciful. I don't feel like things work that way in 2020. June. Hurricane devastates the East Coast. July. COVID runs rampant with states wondering if they should have opened back up. August. Wildfires devastate the West Coast. September. Biden says something idiotic to hurt himself from winning. October. With COVID destroying businesses, the economy crumbles, stocks plunge, and we hit a deep recession, officially. November. Trump wins presidency. December. Riots over the election spread throughout the USA after we find news of another country meddling in the election. China decides to take advantage of our weak situation and launches an economic war. The scary part is this seems totally realistic. Donald Trump suspends or otherwise refuses to hold a presidential election or disputes the validity of the election, leading to even more rioting and a completely unprecedented but not unexpected display of authoritarianism that has to be dealt with by a GOP-stacked Senate and judicial system run by people who probably know they're going to face consequences if they lose power. Uncle Ben and Bruce Wayne's parents come to life, only to be murdered again. It turns out that Hitler, moments before dying, transferred his consciousness into a vessel, which Nazi scientists had spent 75 years converting into a viable clone body. That clone is now ready to re-emerge with his new Nazi fleet known as the Final Order, which is the same 1940s design for aesthetic nostalgia, but with big cannons mounted on them. The first target is the 23andMe servers, which host the genetic markers of everyone who was willing to pay to give their DNA to a big corporation, thus giving Hitler zero access to the names and addresses of every non-Aryan. Great, look what you've done. You be given 2020 another idea, vertical bar. War never changes. If the government accidentally switched out the nation's water supply with meth, Flint, Michigan quality of life improves. June and July 2020, the economy completely collapses because some major corporations go bankrupt because of COVID. We see mild food shortages across Europe. August 2020, a catastrophic hurricane occurs in the US that is followed by a series of earthquakes across Eastern Europe. Some people believe the apocalypse has come. September 2020, a new strain of coronavirus that is similar to SARS-CoV-2 but has heat resistance and 20% death rate appears in Middle East/Africa and ravages the population. October 2020, North Korea falls into chaos after the death of Kim Jong-un and a new radical leader rises to power. Meanwhile, the US is in anarchy because of the economic collapse and protests. November 2020, North Korea declares war on South Korea as they want to create a new Great Korea. America has to react, so American and Japanese troops are sent there, despite massive protests against the war by the population. December 2020, South Korea wins, but Seoul is mostly destroyed by nuclear and chemical weapons. China also doesn't want a US ally in its border, so it strikes back, and we have WW3. A slightly far-fetched scenario, I know. Cats 2. Netflix loses their entire catalog after an accident at the data center, all except for one. Martial law instituted due to protests and COVID, and Trump uses this to push back elections until safety is restored. Oh, and death hornets come back. Second wave of the pandemic, and some idiots tried to protest the quarantine in the end of this month. Some countries are already facing a second wave. Singapore, South Korea, Japan, Israel added Singapore too, removed Vietnam. Just realize that those few cases they gain every other day can't be considered a wave yet. Tactical nuke incoming. Barring solar flares, huge asteroids or comets, or an alien invasion, the worst would be inaction in regards to helping Ukraine in their war against Russia, or inaction in helping Taiwan and Hong Kong in their conflict against China. Inaction against Israel in their war against Palestine gave us the current situation where other countries will take land in any conflict or war, and the powerful will continue to do so in the near future. For the existence of Israel and want Jews to have a safe harbor there, but what they have done to Palestine has eroded any trust in the Geneva Convention as law between countries and the UN as any type of regulating power, i.e. World War III will have its roots in the inaction of 2020. Well, it's been a good run, guys. If there was a killer during all the protests that no one could figure who it was, remove your comment please. That might give some psycho an idea. Bill Murray quits acting, and Yellowstone Megavolcano joins the party. Pennywise, Thanos, and Emperor Palpatine all team up and find King Ghidorah, Galactus. Israel and Iran going to war and Syria joining in, and USA joins and Russia joins in. Yeah, we got WW3. Nah, that's not going to happen. Both Russia and USA doesn't want war with each other, especially not nuke war. Worst thing that could happen, and is happening right now actually, is the big rig contest between USA and China. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.